Good evening, everyone. Thank you to our high school choir students for that beautiful performance, and to their director, Gretchen Obervac, for her leadership and dedication to our students for so many years. It's been a remarkable year for our performing arts programs. Both our choir and band students have truly shined. My name is Charlene Paparizos, and I serve as the Communication Director for Independence Local Schools. On behalf of the district, welcome to this evening's State of the Schools presentation. Tonight is especially meaningful as it marks the first State of the Schools address under the leadership of our new administrative team, Superintendent Kelly Kogan and Treasurer Jennifer Knapp. Superintendent Kogan joined us at the start of the school year, bringing with her a wealth of experience. She most recently was Assistant Superintendent at Olmsted Falls. We are excited about the vision and energy she already is bringing to our district. Treasurer Knapp also joined us at the start of the school year. She most recently was treasurer at Buckeye Local Schools in Medina. Her financial leadership is a valuable asset to our team and to our community. This evening, Superintendent Kogan and Treasurer Knapp will share updates, accomplishments, and the direction we are headed as a district, especially with our new strategic vision. You'll also hear from a few of our high school seniors who will share reflections on their meaningful experiences and memorable moments during their times here at Independence Local Schools. Questions will be welcomed at the end of the presentations. Thank you so much for being here, especially on such a beautiful spring evening, and for your continued support of Independence Local Schools.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. It's my honor and privilege to share with you the 2025 State of the Schools for Independence Local Schools. Tonight is about celebrating our accomplishments, being honest about our challenges, because we do have challenges, and most importantly, casting a shared vision for the future. To start, I'd just like to do a brief welcome to our board members here in the front. Katie Hill, our board president, Carrie Sears, Board Vice President, Tony Avila, Lynn Lasky, and Ron Bernstein. I'd also like to recognize Mayor Kurtz, who's in the audience, along with Vern Blaze, our Finance Director, and other members of the City Council. Our principals here in Independence, Mike Janitovich, Jamie Vanek, and TJ Ebert, our Athletic Director, Brett Deal, our Central Office staff, Sandy McCullough, who's the Director of Pupil Services, and Francine Kane, our Director of Transportation and Food Services. So let me get to my slides and make sure I'm in the right spot. So this year we began a deliberate strategic visioning process because we know that to continue thriving in this district, we must plan thoughtfully and intentionally. We wanted to align our district goals with the values and priorities of our community, stay ahead of changes in instruction and enrollment, and ensure every resource, financial and human, is used effectively to benefit our students. Our process was collaborative and inclusive. Over 75 stakeholders participated in 15 community engagement sessions, including students, parents, staff, alumni, and local business leaders. We analyzed surveys, held listening sessions, and worked with the Schlechte Center to guide our work. So what did we hear? There is definitely a call for rigorous, relevant learning, a commitment to developing the whole child, a need for better communication, a recognition of our amazing staff and a desire to retain them, and clear support for planning around our aging facilities. All of this led to a clear vision. Independence Local Schools will cultivate a legacy of excellence by empowering students to grow academically, socially, and emotionally in a supportive and innovative environment. As we look forward to the future of Independence Local Schools, it's important that we ground ourselves in what we believe as a district and as a community. These belief statements are more than just words. They represent the foundation of our daily work and our long-term vision. We believe that our students should not just be at the center. We believe that our students should not just be at the center of our decisions. They should actually have a voice in shaping their own educational experience. When student voice drives our actions, we see deeper engagement and greater ownership of learning. We believe in inspiring and empowering every student to grow personally, academically, and socially so they can make meaningful contributions not only within our schools but in the broader community. We believe in powerful decision-making. That means being transparent, being innovative, and staying rooted in what's best for our students, always with input and involvement from our community. And finally, we believe in the power of partnership by seeking out and sharing knowledge across our district with families and with the wider community. We create a network of support that strengthens learning and ensures no student walks the path alone. These beliefs guide every initiative we launch, every improvement we're going to make, and every conversation we have about how to best serve our students. Our district goals are a direct reflection of our beliefs that are translated into action. We aim to design learning experiences that are meaningful, relevant, and prepare our students for success beyond the classroom. Through strategic alignment of our resource and knowledge, we foster collaborative growth among our staff, our students, and the community. And we need to be intentional about creating a school environment that's welcoming, inclusive, and reflective of the needs and strengths of our families. This vision isn't just words, and it can't be just words, and it can't just be something we write on the paper and we slap up on our website. It needs to guide our decisions, and it has already started doing that. We've taken a hard look at our curriculum in the district, and we've launched new Tier 1 curriculum adoptions, looking for vertical alignment between pre-K all the way to our high school. We're implementing our district-wide positive behavior intervention supports to support our students socially and emotionally. We've realigned our leadership for stronger instructional support, and we're aligning family engagement and facilities planning with our long-term goals. Our commitment to rigorous, relevant learning is evident in our classrooms. 79 high school students are enrolled in our AP courses, with several earning scholar distinctions, 82 students enrolled in honors classes. This year, we have 2 National Merit Scholars and 4 Ohio Governor's Scholarship recipients. We have 66 students who are earning college credit through our CCP program at the high school. We have 5 CCP courses taught at the high school this year, and we're adding another one next year for CCP public speaking. Our graduation rate is 95.2%, a reflection of student resilience and staff dedication. We had 2 students who've earned the prestigious University of Cincinnati President's Scholarship, when only 20 are awarded statewide. What this data tells us, this data tells a powerful story. Our students are rising to the challenge, our staff are creating rich academic opportunities, but it also tells us where to focus next, on access and on increasing achievement for every student. Career technical education is a growing strength and has been a strength in this district for quite a while. 37 of our juniors and seniors are enrolled at CVCC, gaining real-world experience, industry credentials, and a competitive edge for life after high school. I had the opportunity today to go and visit as they were having their senior scholarship recognition as well as their graduation ceremony. And I met Owen, who's a high school senior. Owen is in the heating HVAC program for air conditioning and heating. And I asked him, so what after this? And he said, well, I'm already employed. He said, and I'm making a lot of money. And I said, good for you. So CVCC, the students are graduating there and are either going to college or they're going right into a career. And as most of you know, there's a high demand for anyone who does heating and air conditioning. So I told him I'm sure he'll be busy. We're proud that 26% of our students are identified as gifted and 22% receive services. Yet we know we must continue expanding these opportunities at our primary school, our middle school, and our high school, and ensuring that we identify and then we support those students. Our average SAT score is 1086, above both the state and the national public school averages, showing our focus on college readiness, and it's making an impact. Across all of our schools, primary, middle, and high school, we are proud of student accomplishments in academics, arts, and athletics. At Independence Primary School, the excitement for learning is truly contagious, might have something to do with their principal. From the vibrant art show that brings together students, families, and community members to celebrate student creativity, to the joy and the engagement of Right to Read Week, to the heartfelt Veterans Day Assembly, these are just a few examples of how IPS is cultivating a lasting legacy of excellence, connection, and pride. At Independence Middle School, students are being exposed to powerful learning experiences that go beyond the classroom. A new pilot program launched in partnership with the Cleveland Clinic and the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center is opening doors for students to explore careers in the medical field. There's more than just being a nurse or a doctor, helping them see what's possible for their futures. We're also proud to share that IMS, along with the high school, has been honored with the Purple Star Award for our strong commitment to supporting students and families connected to military service. And in a beautiful show of unity and learning, and I think many of you may have been there, students from Independence primary and middle schools came together to explore and present on cultures from around the world. The enthusiasm, support, and community participation made this celebration of diversity and cultural awareness truly memorable. At Independence High School, our students continue to demonstrate excellence across academics, arts, and athletics. In AP Art, 5 students submitted portfolios showcasing their creativity, technique, and commitment to their craft. On stage, our students earned Dazzle Award nominations in both technical theater and performance, a testament to the strength and depth of our performing arts program. Our vocal ensemble, which you got to see here tonight, achieved top honors this year, earning a superior rating at the district competition, which brought them to state, where they earned an excellent rating. Athletically, our teams continue to shine. Just last night, our baseball team clinched the CVC championship, and earlier this school year, our girls volleyball team earned both the CVC and the regional championships, an incredible achievement that reflects their determination and teamwork. Whether in the arts, the athletics, or in academics, our high school students are making their mark and continuing the tradition of excellence at the high school. We earned an overall 4.5 out of 5 stars on the Ohio School Report Card. We scored 5 stars in achievement, gap closing, graduation rate, and early literacy. But we received 3 stars in progress. That tells us student growth is not where it should be, and it is something we need to focus on. And we need to take clear steps to address that deficit. Targeted interventions, data-driven instructional decisions. We need to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction that happens in our classrooms. And we need professional development for our teachers to ensure that they are using those best practices in their classroom. Our district remains steadfast in its dedication to academic excellence and equity for all students. We understand that true progress comes from reflection and action. By using the insights we've gained from data, feedback, and experience, we are driving strategic initiatives that will not only sustain but strengthen student outcomes across all grade levels. To that end, looking ahead, we are currently adopting fully aligned curriculum in math and ELA pre-K through 12. We are also adopting curriculum in science pre-K through 12, and then we will continue with the rest of the core content areas and all of our additional courses as we progress throughout the next few years. We're implementing PBIS across all buildings. We're expanding our access to AP, Honors CCP, and Career Tech. We're investing in professional learning and instructional leadership. This is the work that will shape the next generation of learners in Independence. As we talk about cultivating a legacy of excellence in Independence local schools, there's no better way than to bring that to life than through the voices of our students. It's my pleasure to introduce 2 outstanding seniors from Independence High School, Joe Graham and Ella Slawinski. Both of these students exemplify what it means to be leaders in our districts. They've excelled academically, demonstrated strong leadership, and actively contributed to the life of our schools through their involvement in athletics, the arts, and service to others. When I first started here, a little story before I bring you guys up. I know Joe's like, oh, I'll sit back down. Little story, when I first started here, there were new bleachers, and with the new bleachers came a new student section. And the student section had changed from where it had always been. And it separated the students from the band. So band was on one side, students were on the other, and then all of the rest of the spectators were in the middle. I went to that first game, had no idea what it was like beforehand. So the next day, I got an email from Joe Graham, introducing himself. And he said to me, "This is just not going to work." He said, that was not how it was before, and the band plays off of the student section, and the student section plays off of the band section, and now you've placed us on two separate sides. He said, "We're just not going to be able to do that. Can we talk about this?" And he said, "Would you meet with Ella and I, as the senior class presidents for band?" And I said, "Sure." So, of course, I went up to the high school and I met with them. And both of them were so passionate in we really wish someone would have asked us first. And I thought to myself, this is their senior year. They're the students. This is their school. This is their football team. These are their activities. So I went back and I talked to my senior leadership team. And, of course, there were some concerns over our students standing, and then people can't see, and all of the stuff that's the normal kid stuff. And I just said I couldn't say no to them. So I responded back and said, "All right, you can move, but I'm going to need you to kind of follow these rules." And they've been great. So using your voice and advocating, feeling comfortable enough to email the superintendent and advocate for what you think is right is really admirable. And I was glad that I got to meet those two students within my first couple weeks of being here when the school year had started, because they really do. They're the epitome of the students that we have in this district. So today they're here to share a little bit about their experiences growing up in independent schools. I know Ella came in a little bit later and Joe started at the beginning, and how these experiences have shaped them into the well-rounded, driven individuals they are today. Please join me in welcoming Joe and Ella.
So today I'm going to be reading my essay that I wrote for my IHS PTO scholarship. We were asked to describe how the high school impacted us as a person, so I'm going to be reading that. My years at Independence High School have been some of the best years of my life. At first, it can be a bit of a challenge to transition from the middle school, but the best thing that I have done and recommend to new students is to build connections with fellow students and teachers alike. A challenge for students coming to Independence is the size of our school and the ability to fit in. I encourage new students to join a club in which they even have a slight interest. Join a sport, even if they're not good at it, and take that harder class, because pushing oneself makes you better, and students have the opportunity to meet new people along the way, to meet new people through the same struggles as you. And the teachers. After reflecting upon my time at IHS, I have realized that the teachers are our number one supporters. They want to help us succeed in any way possible, whether that means staying up late to add feedback on an assignment, coming in early to school to help on a struggling topic, or just being a friend willing to listen about our crazy lives. The teachers here want to support us in any way possible. And as I leave this school, the teachers will be one of the things that I miss most about IHS.
Hi, I'm Ella Slowinski, and I'm here to talk about my experience as a new student at Independence High School. High school is a time of new. New experiences, new classes, new people, new relationships, new emotions, new challenges, new lessons, and for me, a new school. Before the start of my sophomore year of high school, my family moved, I transferred schools, and became a new student at Independence High School. As the anticipation for attending my new school heightened, so did the assumption of what it would be like. I'd known the surrounding community to be tight-knit, which caused me to wonder what pushback someone new like myself would face. Initially, I worried that I'd have a hard time finding my place in a smaller school. Little did I know I would be invited in with open arms and overwhelmed with endless support. It was because of the school size that I was able to grow such strong connections with my classmates, teachers, and school, especially now as I serve as senior class president. Reflecting on my time here, I have truly realized how impactful these relationships have been on my academic success and social life. The closeness I have felt when having the ability to have one-on-one support from teachers when I'm struggling in a class, or when I'm able to plan and take part in fun activities that stem from an idea I had, have left me with a sense of confidence that could only be possible because of the dedication and care of the teachers and staff at IHS. The opportunities I've received at IHS have sparked my own sense of leadership and allowed me to grow into the version I am of myself, one that I am proud to leave at IHS to contribute my part to our legacy as well as carry into the future. I'm extremely grateful for my time spent at IHS and cannot wait to see what the future holds for our future Blue Devils.
So I'm not quite as high-tech as Ella, but thank you so much. You guys did a wonderful job. I actually have paper. I was impressed with your phone use. So thank you. I love hearing your story. It was really impressive and impactful. And hearing Mrs. Kogan tonight, it really shows and illustrates all the amazing things going on in our district. With all these amazing things, they all take resources. So I'm here to talk about some of the financial picture, where we're going, what we have, and to just kind of illustrate what we're thinking, how we're going to achieve some of our goals and continue to offer these amazing experiences that our students speak about tonight and hopefully would come back and speak about more in the future. So with that, many people just ask, where do you get your money from? Where does it come from? How are schools funded? And to be very honest, school funding is super complex. It's not as straightforward as our personal checkbook, where we go to work, we get a paycheck, and we spend it. It comes from multiple sources. And when you look at this graph, you'll see that 60% is from local taxes. And many of you have experienced the reappraisal that we went through in the county and have seen your tax bills go up and have seen your costs go up and have seen inflation go up. And we're seeing some of those things that we haven't seen that are a little bit unprecedented. And the initial response is, well, the school must be getting all of that money. Later on, I'm going to show you that we don't get it all, just so you're aware. The tax bills are shared among different entities within our district. And so, but 60%, the school still needs and relies on 60% from tax dollars. And that's called local funding for us. And that equates for us to be approximately $12 million a year. The state funding, the blue part of the wheel, that's probably the part that's under most discussion right now if anyone's following the state legislature and budgeting. And if you watch anything down in Columbus, you're going to see that that is very much debate. There's a great deal of pressure put on lawmakers right now to provide property tax reform, as the entire state has went under significant property appraisal increases over the last 6 years across the state. I'm not sure. I'm glad I'm not one of the ladies and gentlemen down in Columbus having to make those choices, because not everyone's going to come out to be a winner in state budgeting, right? So we hope that the legislature will continue to advocate for public education and for things that we can provide these amazing opportunities for students with. And some of the current proposals that I'll show a slide later on, it could really negatively impact a district, and not just independents, all districts. It could force districts to be going to the taxpayers early and often, asking for more help financially, which could, that just is a continuation of more taxes, and that is also not something that everyone wants to hear about. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And the yellow, the 29% of other revenue, that comes from mainly our tax incremental financing program, our payment in lieu of taxes, which the City of Independence is extremely gracious to make us whole as a school district, and it's one of the many generous areas that we are able to collaborate with the city, and it shows their strong demonstration and commitment to the school district. Many TIFs, which is their nickname, are not made whole for schools. So that is a really very kind, generous thing that we are able to capitalize on, and that's 29% of our revenue. The other part of other revenue too is building rentals and like soft cost revenues that we will get, but nothing, the bulk of that is from the TIFs. And then how does taxing work? So many people don't understand. They think if my home value is $200,000, I'm getting taxed on $200,000. And that's not how it works. When I speak about this with my friends, they always say it's the most complicated thing and ask me to stop talking. So I hope you guys don't do that to me this evening. But when you have $100,000 of value, you're only taxed on 35% of that, which is $35,000. So 1 mil is $35 on $100,000 of appraised value, which is $35,000 of taxable value. So I hope this graph just illustrates that a little better for you. And in tax year 24, we are taxed on 27.69 mils, and this equates to approximately $1,938 per year in taxes for every $200,000 of assessed value. This is before tax reimbursements take place, such as homestead and rollback, and those are on any levies passed before 2013. And those come from the state level, just for clarification of where those come from. But when we look at local taxes and understanding our levy cycle, if we think of our school district as a home budget, periodically we need to come and ask our community to provide or approve additional operating monies, which would establish a really stable and more predictable source of revenue to cover essential expenses. We've been very fortunate that we've been able to not do that since 2011, which is 14 years since new additional money was passed. And we've had our emergency levy has renewed and RPI has renewed since that time too. So we appreciate the community continuing to support in renewals and that one additional cycle. And then so levy cycles are designed by nature to have an increase immediately with an amount of money coming in flux. Then you continue to spend it and it will come down. So there's a time where we call it deficit spending, which is where you are not bringing in as much money as you're spending. And some people will view that as irresponsible financial management. It's the design of the system. It's not irresponsible financial management. It is designed that you at one point are not spending as much as you're bringing in, and then you are designed to spend more than you're bringing in from your savings. And then that's when you need to look at, that's called the levy cycle, and that's when you look at when do you need to come back and ask community for more support financially. So looking ahead, as we continue to spend smarter, we monitor our finances closely. The executive leadership team and Superintendent Koga and I talk about finances, I think, every day. And it's exciting for me and sometimes not so much for them. But we do. We have a deep commitment to talking about it and how can we lengthen this levy cycle. So when I spoke to when you're spending more than you're bringing in, how can you minimize that and extend it so that you don't have to come back to your community as often as maybe you would if you were not being fiscally responsible or fiscally strategic with your spending. So we continue to adjust the spending to meet our student needs. We try to align it with our curricular needs. We spoke about some of the needs coming up, and we know that's going to take financial resources. And we look to where can we maybe no longer put our financial resources. That strategic visioning process that we spoke to earlier that Superintendent Kogan did, that's crucial to that. Every decision we put financial resources to should align to that visioning process and go to our beliefs and our vision and mission statement. And by doing that exercise, it brought clarity to us as a team so that we can continue to know this is where we need to put our resources at. So I was really excited when we jointly said, we're going to do the strategic vision, and it was exciting for me too, and I'm happy to try to contribute to how we can get financial resources. And it's not always on property taxes. Please know we look for different grants that we can find. We look for state funding, federal funding, partnerships with different businesses and entities that are willing to collaborate and make partnerships with us. But eventually, with all that said, and all the amount of fiscal responsibility and accountability we can do, at some point we will need to come back to voters to ask for additional funding to maintain the high-quality educational opportunities that we pride ourselves in providing yesterday, today, and tomorrow, which really is the cultivating of the legacy of excellence. And amazingly enough, financial resources are required to do that, and we want to continue to push that and make sure everyone's on the same page and moving in an alignment. So our levies, I just want to tell you what kind of levies we have so you would know. We have 3 levies. We have operating, bond, and permanent improvement. They all have very different and specific reasons and rationales of what you can and cannot spend on. So in my world, we call those restricted funds. They all have restrictions on what you can and cannot do with them, and it's important as a community to understand the difference so that you understand what money's being used for which purpose. So an operating levy, we have continuing levies and one fixed sum, which is the emergency levy. The state legislature calls them emergency levies. I like to call them fixed sum because they bring in an exact amount of money, and you can relate a little better. Some folks think, well, if it's an emergency, how can you have an emergency be renewed all the time? I wish they would change it to fixed sum. Ours is 4.2 million is what it brings in annually. But again, these continuing levies, the fixed sum levies, they provide stable fiscal support for us. And it's for the daily operations to our general fund. So that's classroom instruction, instructional supports, support services like transportation, maintenance, custodial services. All of our special education and student services come out of those funds. So it's a bulk of our spending. I mean, truly, at least 80% of our spending is on educational needs such as classroom instruction, support services. So that's what our operational levy's for. When we look at our bond levy, obviously that's been a little bit of a topic. We've been talking about facility assessment planning and going through that process. We have one on our books right now, and it is our 2002, when it was passed for the high school, the shared service there with the field house. And it can only be used for bricks and mortar. So it's important to understand operational levies can only be used for true operations, which is instruction and support services. Bonds can only be used for bricks and mortar. And currently, as I mentioned, we're doing the diligence of the facility assessment. And those of you that have been coming to our meetings, you got to hear the AVG presentation on where we stand with the facilities, one that we're standing in tonight and two that are there in our neighborhoods to see what the likelihood of is to what we need to do with them. And then our high school bond, we're going to talk a little bit more in another slide about the likelihood of paying that off early to save taxpayers interest money and money on their tax bills. So I'll get to that in a little bit. And lastly, we have a permanent improvement levy, and that's for capital improvements. So that is our buses, our technology, and I know I put another one on there, buses, technology, infrastructure, and facility improvements or repair. So a general rule is it's $5,000 or more, and it's going to last 5 years, so it's a true capital item that we need to do. And we're fortunate enough to have a levy to help support that. That brings in around $750,000 annually. And to give you an idea, because some people think, well, that is so much money, we cannot complete a roof project on a building with one PI year. We have to do them in sections and take them apart to do that. We also are paying our House Bill 264 bond off on that, so that's a mandatory commitment that we have in that fund too. But and that will be asked to be renewed for sure because it's extremely valuable and imperative to the district. And the earliest we would be able to renew that is in 2026. And it's been renewed at least twice at 5-year increments. So our strategic spending, I like to think that we are committed to strategic spending and that accountability is our key pillar in that so that we know where we're spending our money and staff members know if they're asking for something, does it align with our vision and beliefs that we just went through in our process? And if it does, then we need to collaboratively find a way to make that happen. So we carefully plan how to use every dollar to benefit our students and our district. This means curricular visioning, educational programming, and opportunities for students to provide a safe and welcoming environment. And we focus on that at every AT meeting we talk about these things. So if we just look at a graph, I just wanted to illustrate too how much goes to classroom versus non-classroom, because when I talked about operating levies, I said it goes to both classroom instruction and support services. 65% of all of our expenses support classroom instruction. So we do try to focus on the student and the services we're delivering to students, specifically in curricular instruction. So one of the things that we've been hearing a lot of is schools need to live in their budget. They need to spend their money wisely. They're spending too much. And I just want to illustrate between 2021 and 2024, our spending trend increased at a lower percentage than the consumer price index or inflation at that time. So we're spending less than the predicted rate that is the CPI or inflation rate. So I will say this reflects the commitment to our financial responsibility and stewardship, that we're looking for cost containment strategies. We're looking at how to be strategic and purposeful with our spending. And by carefully managing our expenses, we're protecting our tax dollar, our taxpayers' investment in the schools, and trying to get as many resources as possible to get them back into the classroom. So measuring spending against inflation is just one way to ensure that we're aligning our decisions to the strategic visioning. But that is definitely something that's being spoke about in Columbus, and I wanted to just give the community an idea of how much that is. Sorry, it didn't go. We did. Yeah, we respect so where are we going for the future? We respect the need for long-term planning. Just this year, the Board of Education worked with us to pass a cash balance policy that outlines an upper and a lower limit for cash on hand, so we can ensure that we're taxing the residents responsibly and have effective planning in place for finances. And together with the cash balance policy, the 5-year forecast, district leadership uses these tools to make purposeful and strategic decisions on how we're going to spend our financing. And those tools are extremely important to give us a directional idea. We look at where we're going to start deficit spending in those tools and how we can then again realign our expenses to maybe try to push that out as far as possible. Continuing to plan for the future is that the bonds, like our home mortgage, we can refinance them, but only at certain times. Our next opportunity is 2027 that we could do some kind of refinancing option. And currently, we are looking at paying off our bonds early. So that would be 3 years in advance of the amortization schedule, or when they're supposed to be done. And how can we do that? That should be a question everyone asks. How is that possible? It's through the strategic refinancing that has been done since 2002 or 2002. They've been refinanced several times. You get savings each time you can refinance. And then through the prudent fiscal management, we're able to reduce our tax burden for our bonds. And we, last month at our board meeting, voted to decrease the millage to the taxpayers to 1.1 instead of 2.2, saving $77 annually on a home of $200,000 value. Now, that might not seem like much, but it's certainly a commitment to only tax at the rates we need to. And it's going to allow us to pay off a bond early, and it'll save $228,400 in interest. So all really good news for taxpayers, for schools, and for how we can maybe plan more for the future. The Ohio legislature is currently working on the biennial budgeting process. So this State of the Schools comes at a very unique time where I'm not sure what they're going to choose, and it makes it very hard to plan a good forecast knowing that we're at a biennium change versus being in the middle of one. Forecasts are much easier to do when you're in the middle and you know your finance supports. But much of the proposals being introduced and being discussed are analyzed, are cutting public education in some fashion for funding, and they're further shifting the burden to the state, from the state to the local taxpayers. This reliance on local property taxes makes long-term planning more difficult. And to show you just an illustrative here, the blue line is the 30% cap going on right now that's being talked about. For those of you that are not aware, one of the proposals is that a district cannot hold more than 30% of its cash reserves based on previous year's expenditures. There's many flaws to this, truly, because not all our cash reserves are built on property taxes. The thought is to try to provide property tax reform with this cap, but what it will do is make us have to come to voters and communities more often, and not just in independents across the state. Because you can see the blue line, how drastic that would impact our cash balances over time. The green line represents what I believe is going to happen with our budget as it's presented right now. And the orange line was what the governor presented to go to the House. And then the House has now taken it to the Senate. So one of these three lines, or a mixture of one of these three lines, somewhere in here is where we end. And until that is clear, it's very hard to do that. So our November forecast is likely going to look very different than just our May one due to that. So important to see that. And then as we conclude here, planning for the future, as financial resources increase, sorry, I want to come back here. As the financial levels increase, so much of our, I think I'm in the wrong slide here. Nope, I'm not. Growing momentum for urging communities to advocate for our for schools, we really need you guys to get out and talk to state legislatures and representatives and talk about the need to support public education financially. As we continue to spend wisely and continue to find creative methods of education opportunities, to support our curricular and co-curricular. So we're working as hard as we can to try to make sure we're delivering the best product possible and the financial resources behind that. So as these sources decline, districts across the state are asking communities for additional effort, and we can only provide education to the level of funding we have. So we every day, again, I can't stress enough, try to make sure that we're doing this in alignment and making sure we're working together for that. So as we conclude this very last one, our schools are the heart of our community, and the success of our students is truly a reflection of the support we build together. So let's continue to inspire our students to continue to cultivate the legacy of excellence that we're looking at. We're truly grateful, deeply grateful for the unwavering support of our community, and together, through our thoughtful planning, purposeful planning, and strategic stewardship, we'll continue to deliver the excellence that we're delivering in education opportunities. So now we'd like to talk more about our facility and bond issues, and Mrs. Superintendent Kogan will come back up, and I'll be her support.
All right, and now to facilities, because our buildings must match the excellence of our students and staff. So every child deserves to learn in an environment that inspires them to grow, dream, and thrive. But right now, our classrooms are struggling to meet the needs of modern instruction. Many lack the space, the flexibility, and technology integration required to support 21st century learning. Infrastructure challenges such as aging HVAC systems, limited accessibility, and outdated safety features create daily obstacles that detract from the student experience. I thought about putting some pictures up here, but I really, for those of you who have been in the building, we had a huge rainfall last Friday, and water was just pouring in at the primary school from the roof down, with buckets and towels being there. The lower level where Mr. Dave is, the custodian, water just coming in underneath there, and we have tried to waterproof the walls there to keep it, but the Band-Aids just aren't working anymore. And while our educators work hard to make the most of what we have, we simply can't offer the same level of facilities that many surrounding districts right next door already provide. It's time we give our students the learning environment they deserve. Our students show up every day ready to succeed. They work hard, they care deeply about their futures, and they represent the very best of the Independence community. They deserve schools that match their potential, facilities that reflect our shared value, meet today's standards, and prepare them for the challenges and opportunities of tomorrow. Our schools are extremely old. I happened to be sitting in a meeting last night with city council members and the mayor and finance director, and I think, Mayor, you said you went to the primary school? Okay, so I'm just saying, us, we were there. So we just, these buildings have been around forever. So when people say, I went to that school, it was good enough for me, remember that if you went to that school, how many years have passed, right? If you're living in the Century Home, at some point, you're going to have to do some work for that. And sometimes the work is more expensive, and you need to kind of look at, should we just move to build another home or move to another location? So I want you to know that when we start considering our facilities and the potential for a bond issue, we're not talking about luxury. This isn't something where we're talking about taking really great buildings and saying, you know what, we want to make them shinier, we want to make them more bells and whistles. This is about improving the facilities that we have had for quite a long time. It's really about equity. It's about looking at Independence, and our students go and they go to other schools, they go to other school districts. And I'm going to call Joe Graham out. He was in our strategic visioning. And he said, we go to these places and we see these buildings, and really we should be the district where people are coming to see us, coming to see what we've done in our community and our facilities and the programs that we have. And I couldn't agree with him more. It's about safety. There are a lot of requirements now with new builds as it relates to sprinkler systems and your fire systems and safety within the building. Our buildings do not comply with the current safety standards. They don't. And that's just something that we have to realize, and we have to think about those and what that means for our facilities. We want to create learning experiences and spaces that honor the effort and commitment of our students. We have a student in a wheelchair at our primary school. That student has a very difficult time navigating within the classroom. It's because those classrooms are not the size that they need to be for our students. The doorways are not wide enough. We are not ADA compliant at either of these two buildings, at the middle school and the primary school. We want to ensure that they have an environment that they need to continue building a legacy of excellence. Our journey towards improving our school facilities has been thoughtful, inclusive, and community-driven from the very beginning. Through our community engagement and strategic visioning process, one message came through loud and clear. Facilities are a priority. They were in 2019, and they continue to be now in 2025. To better understand our needs, we partnered with the Architectural Vision Group to conduct a comprehensive facilities assessment. Their findings confirmed what many of us already knew. Our buildings need significant updates to support the future of learning. The AVG assessment is on our website. It's a long document, but it identifies all of the issues, not only with the primary school and the middle school, but I don't know how many people have ever been to visit our transportation facilities down by the board office. We have a bus shelter there, and we also have a bus garage. Our bus garage is one garage door that opens, one bus can go in at a time. We do not have anything to wash the undercarriage of those buses. It's a hose outside. Our mechanic, who is amazing, gets onto a rolling thing to roll underneath the bus because we do not have anything where we can lift our buses. Our bus drivers who come in every day, the buses are not fully sheltered, so a lot of times the weather is snow is falling on the buses. It's not a heated area at all where they are out there warming up our buses. The shelter, which was built a long time ago, was built for buses when they weren't as big and as long as they are now, so our buses are not fully covered, which then causes issues with weathering and then having to replace those buses sooner. And in all honesty, our bus drivers are down there and they do our day runs, they do our night runs for our athletics and our academic teams. They are working on the weekend, and there is no restroom in their break room. So they have to go somewhere else, either to the garage, and if the garage is locked, and they go up to the board office to go to the restroom. So we asked for AVG to also do an assessment on that property or that building area as well. And they basically, their engineer said that this shelter should come down yesterday. That it is not really, it's not even what he would say would be something that we would want to be using today. So recognizing that AVG came in and gave us numbers, and I'm not going to bore everybody with the numbers, basically what AVG said, and they're not the architectural firm that is going to be building for us. They're a firm that comes in and they do an assessment with their engineers. You, of course, pay a fee for that, but they come in and they just tell you like it is. Here's what we can see. Now, granted, they're not going down underneath all of the buildings and looking at the foundation and, you know, pulling apart walls to see really what the pipes look like underneath. But from what they said, to renovate our buildings, it wouldn't even be cost-wise, it wouldn't be cost-effective, that it would actually be better for us to build a new building. I love to say that Treasurer Knapp always jokes, don't you ever watch those home shows where like the people are like, we're gonna renovate the building, and then they always get the call every 20 minutes that says, we need another $25,000 because this happened? That's a fear of hers. But the point being is that our facilities need to be addressed. And to better understand our needs, we did this partnership, and since then we've been with ongoing collaboration with the Board of Education and our city leaders as well to kind of explore what's possible. We recognize that school funding has been found unconstitutional. All of us are feeling the burden of school tax levies and bond issues. All of us, myself, live in my district. We all have that. We are not able to go and take a loan out. We cannot go and say we would like a loan for this and we'll pay it back over time. School districts don't have that option. We have to go to our taxpayers. And now we're engaging in this important conversation about a potential bond issue. We're considering the scope of the project, the right timing to bring it to our community. As Treasurer Knapp stated, a bond issue, you still have an operating levy, you still have permanent improvement on certain cycles. We recognize that this is something that we need to be strategic, we need to be transparent, and we need to make sure that we're doing due diligence in ensuring what we're doing is the right thing for the district and for our community. What the bond would support, if pursued, a bond would help us build future-ready learning spaces, a more modern infrastructure, and provide a return on community investment, both educationally and economically. Homes don't stay up for sale very long in Independence, and I know that because people continuously tell me they cannot find a home here. And it's because people live here and they stay here, and if you move here and you have children here, you come here because it's a great district. If you ask anyone, for somebody coming from outside of the district, when you say Independence, the first thing you hear is what an amazing district it is and what an amazing community it is. And obviously, everyone's voice matters. Everyone from the Board of Education, to our city leaders, to the community, to our students, to our staff. We want community input. And as we move further into making some decisions, we will seek that community input. We'll host open houses, information sessions, and forums. And I'll be honest, some people are not going to like what we're saying, and they're not going to believe us, and they're not going to vote for the levy. And I recognize that those are people's choices. You have to make the decision. But at the same time, it would be remiss of us not to provide those opportunities for all stakeholders and to answer the questions and to try to convey why we're doing what we're doing. Oops, let me go back one, sorry. Let me close with this. Our schools are the heart of Independence. This is a small community when you think about the community in the schools. When I first took the job here or heard about the job here, I was told there's about 1,100 students. And I said, wait, in Independence? In my mind, I thought Independence was so large, right? Because I go to the ESC on Independence, on Rockside Road. And while 60,000 people may come in and out of the city every day, the community itself and the schools, it's close-knit. It's a small community who supports the schools. It's a great city. And the students, the product that leaves our high school at the end is a product that I think many of us are very proud of. The achievements of our students are the results of our shared commitment from our teachers, from our families, and this community. We want to continue to dream big. We want to plan smart and do right by our students. And obviously you are all partners in this journey, and we will, as we kind of think about what this is going to look like long term, and for the future, again, we will be asking people to participate. Whether you're for or against, just participate. Be there, ask the questions, and we'll try our best to answer them. So with that said, our communications director, Charlene, has the microphone. We are recording this for us to put up on the website so people can see it. I will also have a link to the presentation, so you'll also be able to see that as well. We are going to ask that you use the microphone. I know some people are like, I have a really loud voice. But we want to make sure that those who are watching this afterwards hear the question so they know they can hear our response and the question as well. And if we can't answer your question, because I am sure somebody's going to stump us, or ask us a question that we haven't thought about, we will make sure that we get your name and the contact information so that if we don't have that information, we can fact check or go back and get that and then give you that information. So we'll go ahead and start with any questions.
I guess a request of the school board. Good evening. My name is Pam Pullman. I'm a 30-year resident of Independence. My husband Craig and I have 3 boys that all attended Independence schools where I believe they got an excellent education. They were allowed to participate in whatever athletics and academic activities that they chose to do. And my oldest son and his wife recently bought a house in Independence. So I feel as a taxpayer and a homeowner as well as a parent, I have a vested interest in keeping our schools strong. Having said that, I'm also a teacher of over 20 years in Brecksville, Broadview Heights. And I guess the comment that I want to make and the request I want to make of the Board of Ed and the administrators, and I guess I'm going to try and hold you to this, is that you will ask for community input and listen to what the community and the teachers have to say. I have a feeling it's probably the same architectural firm and contractors that are kind of going from town to town that built the North Royalton School and have built the Brecksville Broadview Heights Elementary School. My fear is that they will talk us into upgrades that are really not fiscally responsible. Having taught for 3 years in this building at Brecksville, we have a slide that goes from the library into the ground floor of the the open media center. Unfortunately, that slide is used to reward students on a Friday at 3 o'clock once a week. It is underutilized because there's not enough staff and there are too many classes in that media center on a daily basis for anybody else to use it at any other time. To me, that was a big waste of taxpayers' money. They also put in a selfie wall so that students could walk through the foyer as they got off the buses in the morning, stand against a wall, press a button, and then have their picture taken and projected on the wall. That lasted all of about a week. You can imagine the chaos in a K through 5th grade building. We have a dog wash station for our comfort animal. In 3 years, I've not seen a dog washed once at that dog wash station. Light bright walls in the hallway, as teachers are expected to have the children walk down the hallways quietly and not playing with things. So a lot of distractions. Collaboration is the buzzword. It's been for probably the past 15 to 20 years. We have 11 to 12 classes of every grade level in this K through 5 building. They are built in a pod, and the pod is, in the middle of the pod would be a collaborative space to be used, ideally for the students to go out and to be able to read with partners or work in small groups. I think it's fantastic to do for a middle school and a high school. I think it's a waste of space in an elementary building. Unless you have the staff, again, to facilitate watching those students out in that pod, it just becomes a playground. Our lockers are also in that pod space, and so we've had situations where they've needed to turn that space into a temporary classroom. They have sliding doors, but because there are lockers in that area, you have students continually walking through that area, so it's not an uninterrupted, quiet space to learn. Additionally, and there's some very good things about this building, don't get me wrong, but I see this and I see what works and what hasn't worked. We don't have a main or a central office. That continues to be a problem. If we need to get hold of an administrator for any reason, we have to text them or get on a walkie-talkie. So again, my request would be of the Board of Education and the administrators to please think of the functionality rather than the form. It's a very pretty school, but sometimes what we think is going to work doesn't always work. And so I'm asking you to be just good stewards of the taxpayers' money and to really think before we jump at some of these bells and whistles.
Thanks, Pam. And it's interesting because I know the board has heard me say this a lot. Those are bells and whistles. And I don't know necessarily that you need the bells and whistles to make sure that our students have the best learning environment. And that said, I've had to kind of clarify when I say the no bells and whistles. I'm not saying that when we build something, it should look exactly like the primary school, right? There can be some differences in there because we're in the 21st century. But I agree with you that yes, and we would love to have your voice for that because I think that's your experiences would lend value as we think about what we want. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim Lesh. I've been a resident of Independence for over 50 years. I'd just like to elaborate on an issue that was brought up about the aging condition of our schools. I worked as a custodian for Cleveland Public Schools for 30 years. And I worked during a time when they were reconstructed. At that time, the state gave $3 to build those schools for every dollar that the city gave. So it was an easy levy to pass. I know Independence doesn't get nothing compared to what the state, from the state. Secondly, construction, the primary school I've gone through, and in this school, I've gone through all the I know for a fact that there was one school in Cleveland, John Hay, where the residents demanded that it be redone, okay, renewed, whatever, okay. It cost almost twice as much to do that building as if they were to tear it down and build new. I mean, we can look at these walls, we see nice solid block, we don't see no cracks, but to put in any type of new communications wires or anything like that, the walls, you got to do that stuff before the walls are up. So I know that John Hay was a huge money pit to basically reconstruct, and it was the only school that was done that way in the Cleveland schools. I'd also like to make a point too that I was glad to hear that you said that you would focus on the basics like math and science and stuff like that. I would like to see too a strong curriculum in American history. Okay, we do honor our veterans. It's very important, I think, to have American history because I believe it was Ronald Reagan that said that if we forget where we came from, we forget who we are. I have a question for the treasurer. Do you have any idea if the levies that you're proposing, are they for replacement of the schools? And if so, the millage amount?
Is this, I don't think mine's, how do you turn them on? Sorry, I don't get the tech award for the day. I realize mine's
okay.
not on. We haven't got that far yet, which is why we're just talking about the need for it first. There's been some discussion out there about if we were to do a bond issue, would it be 30 years, 35 years, 25 years? So that still needs to be debated. If it were 35 years on a new build, it could potentially be 4.4 mils, depending on the interest rate, the time, when we would do it, what the valuation is, because valuation will increase, which would drive millage down. So it's not held at 4.4, it's just a potential. There's a lot of discussion that has to take place first.
Okay, I have one more. I have actually.
I just wanted to clarify though, because I think too, your question was, when AVG did their assessment, they agreed with what you were saying as far as what had happened with the John Hay High School, in that it would be more cost effective for us to build new than it would for us to renovate, because we don't see, to your point, what's behind everything.
Right.
So they're giving us a cost, and then they're saying, you've got a lot of contingencies there depending on that. So we would be looking at a new build.
Okay. The second question is that I also went through the high school, okay, and I was surprised to find out that the high school was built without a vapor barrier. And that had created a lot of damage to the roof, a tremendous amount of damage to the roof. And anytime you have water leaks or anything coming from the roof, you're always going to expose children to mold and stuff like that, and the staff members too. I also noticed that there were milk crates full of electronic flush valves from everywhere to the sinks, to the toilets, and they were replaced in lavatories with manuals. The high school has, you know, some rooms, I think it's a general meeting where normally these school board meetings are held, where the ceiling is, you know, 30 feet high and stuff like that. And that's all extra heated and air-conditioned space along with the auditorium. So, again, I think to emphasize on what the young lady over there said, is that if we do pass this, there has to be some really good, close monitoring, you know, whether it's a general contractor, and someone has to be held accountable, because no one was held accountable for the roof. And I know that probably isn't anyone here in this administration, but there needs to be good, solid accountability and oversight. Thank you.
And we are aware of the roof issue at the high school, and thank you for saying that it wasn't us. Those people before us. So we're working on that as well, and correcting that, because you know, the high school is our newest building, and it's a beautiful building. And it's unfortunate that, that shouldn't be happening, but we are addressing that. And as far as if and when we do go for a new build, to your point, I think the most important person is your project manager and your general contractor, who could be both or two separate people, but someone who knows what they're doing and is there all the time to make sure that it's done correctly.
Hi, my name is John Doherty. I'm a 40-year resident of Independence. My wife and I raised 8 kids in town, and several of them went to the school system. I know you were making comments about the school system, and obviously, the need for some structural form changes in the buildings. Several people in here will know I'm vehemently against operating levies. I just think it's crazy that we just automatically assume that the only way we can continue to fund schools is to just keep asking people for more money without looking at any structural reform of what's going on and how the school system operates. But again, that's an operating levy. Kind of for what we want to try and do here with the buildings, agree. My question is, though, and maybe this will change with the May forecast coming out, but in your November forecast, there was a 10-11% reduction in the total student population projected between, I think, 2021 and 2029. We had about 1,000 or so kids several years ago. We're going to end up with, based upon your numbers, just a little bit over 900 in 2029. And there was a comment in the notes section where that might even get worse based upon vouchers. So if kids are leaving the school system, in general, how do we promote the need for new buildings? And where are all these kids leaving from? I noticed there were 141 vouchers given this past year. Are all those vouchers coming from the high school? I'm assuming that. I don't think people are leaving the middle school or the primary school. I noticed in the forecast information, there's no detailed information about what the population is of the elementary school, the middle school, or the high school. That used to be provided in the forecast information. That's no longer there. So I'm assuming most of the leakage is in the high school. So one question would be, in this whole issue of what we want to do with our new buildings, which in principle, I agree, we need to do something. But has there been any thought out of the box? I've walked through that high school a few times, and there are times where I've seen you can roll a bowling ball down the hallways and not hit anybody. You got so many kids going to CVCC, you got so many kids going to Cleveland State, you got so many kids going to Tri-C. Can the high school be repurposed? Can we look at combining the middle school with the high school into 3 segments rather than spend the money for the renovation? But start thinking out of the box, because I'm old enough to remember when we had that levy for the new high school, we were projecting about 125, 150 kids in each class. And my understanding is there were 69 kids in the graduating class last year. And if we lost 141 to vouchers, what are we going to do with all that space in the high school then? Maybe I'm wrong. So anyway, that's a long-winded question of where we want to go.
And I just want to make a point of clarification of the enrollment in the forecast specifically. That's funded dollars from the state. So that 951 of funded students is what we're speaking to in a 5-year forecast versus number of children you would need to potentially build for.
I mean, this probably isn't the forum for it, but I thought in 2029, the number I saw was 906 kids in the total school system.
This year's 951 going down, but the ones in the forecast are on funded dollar amounts.
I don't know what that means. I'm looking at how many cookuses are in the system.
So that's a higher number than the one in the forecast, because the forecast is relating to funded students of 951, because they take the October number. We can talk, I'll clarify that.
Yeah, I'd like some clarification.
And I think I just wanted to respond to your other comment about the vouchers as well as enrollment. So the number of vouchers that are currently happening, those aren't necessarily kids that are leaving our district. They were kids who were already in private school, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. So the vouchers are increasing because the vouchers are now available for more students based upon what the total is for the income that the family makes. So we have more students that we have the same number of students in the private schools, but more students taking a voucher, which has a whole other, because that's really, we believe, coming from the same pot of money at the state level, where we feel like maybe don't fund some of that, put that back into the public schools so we can take some of the burden off of off of the taxpayers for that. The second part of your question was about our retention. Between 8th and 9th grade, historically, we have a group of students anywhere, and it depends on the year and how many students are in the class, but anywhere from about 10 to 16 students who transition from our middle school to go to a private high school. I've talked a little bit about some of that in looking at it and asking students, why are you leaving? Why are you doing that and not staying with us? Some of it is we don't have a hockey team, and there are a lot of students who play hockey at the middle school level, and they want to play hockey for their high school. We don't offer that. There are some students who it's a legacy thing. Their dad went, their grandpa went, their mom went, and they're going there. Sometimes I don't even necessarily know. I might have been one of those students who I wanted to go to Cleveland Heights High School, and I was told I had to go to Beaumont, which I loved, but I didn't really have that choice. So I don't necessarily know that sometimes it's the students more, it's just that's where, you know, they're going. I think the other thing we need to do is we need to communicate to some families who may be choosing something else because they don't think our high school is going to get their student to a high-level college experience, to being, you know, accepted into a college that's not in Ohio, which is not true. You know, we've had students who attend, prestigious universities and colleges. So we need to do better at being able to say that you can come to our high school, and for as small as we are, we're going to have 6 College Credit Plus classes going on our campus for the number of AP courses we have, for our offerings. Our choir and our drama and our athletics are performing at a high level. We need to do a better job of communicating that. We've operated kind of as 3 different schools within a district. We need to do better at having people see that this district that is made up of 3 schools is a viable option for pre-K all the way through 12. So that is something we're focusing on and that we're working on. Yeah, so, right, so I would say that when I go there, because when the bell rings and the students come out, because you don't have as many students as maybe a traditional kind of high school, like where I came from, the hallways might not look as crowded, but when those rooms are being used, you know, there are classes going on in all of the rooms. And Mr. Janatovich could speak more to that, but absolutely when we go up there, I know there's not necessarily a ton of space. I even jokingly said to him, could the board office move up to the high school? Could you take all of us up there and give us space? And that was kind of not really, we don't have enough space for all of you to come up. Because we talked about maybe potentially merging central office with the high school. I think there's always been conversation about, do you move your 8th graders over to the high school? I will tell you that's been tried in a few districts. Mayfield is the one that comes right to my head. They did it for 2 years and moved their 8th graders back. It's just a whole different world with your 8th graders and your 12th graders, and there's not a real easy way to keep them separate. We've talked about potentially doing a pre-K-8 building, and I'm only addressing this because I think the one thing we can do, to your point, as it relates to operating levies, if we had a pre-K-8 building where all students were under one roof, 2 separate buildings, different entrances, keeping the students separate, but they're sharing the same roof, we could have shared services. Shared services would allow us to kind of look at certain offerings that we have. For example, you know, we have high school Spanish. We bring a high school Spanish teacher down to our middle school so they can have high school Spanish as 8th graders. You know, we have art teachers that may have some time in their schedule that maybe could do 2 different, could do primary and middle, and being in the same campus, they would be able to do that because they need travel time currently, and they're not able to do that with their current schedule. So I think there's ways that we can look at which would impact our operating levy and when we need to come back by being financially smart and strategic with shared services with a one-building pre-K-8 on the campus where the high school is.
Hello, my name is Natalie McAllister, and I have 4 boys in the district, pre-K through 6th grade. So I certainly have a vested interest in our schools. And given that the likelihood, if the bond passes, would be to build new, can you help us understand a little bit what the vision would be for these new schools? And I fully understand nothing's baked, obviously, but I can't imagine that conversations haven't happened about what it could be. So can you just speak a little bit to that? And can you also speak to the communication plan that is planned to help the broader community understand why this bond issue is so important, to hopefully, activate a bond at some point?
Sure, so I'm going to start with a little bit of a vision. And again, preliminary. These are just things that we've talked about. And I guess when I think about my vision, I think about the current vision with our buildings and what I don't want to see in a new build. Our primary school, as you know, because you have students in the district, we have to bring our food down from our middle school. It does not have a walk-in cooler because it cannot, the electrical down there will not hold that voltage that it needs. Our ovens down there are small, so we can't do the pizzas that the kids love because we can't cook them all in there. So when I think about the vision, I'd like to have a cafeteria kitchen where those things are happening within that building. In our primary building and our middle school building, because of when it was built, our teachers cannot plug more than a couple things into the outlets in their rooms because if they do, it blows a fuse. We know with technology and our students having Chromebooks and having devices that being able to have an electrical system where they could plug those things in, where students could actually maybe keep their Chromebooks at school so they could charge overnight. Those are things that I would want to see in a more modernized building. Classrooms where you have a dedicated space, especially at the primary level, for students to sit on a carpet, a spot for them to go and spread out among the room as they're working collaboratively, while people could still walk around with our students who are also handicapped, being able to access that environment as well. So those are some of the things for me, not the leaking of the ceiling or the leaking through the roof. I would want safety to be something. It's great that we have SROs in our building, especially at our primary and our middle school level, but walking into the main area of the building, I would want to make sure that we have vestibules where our visitors are there until they're vetted through our process and then brought into the building. I think that's something that I would want to see in our new building. I would want to see windows that can be opened. I would want to see air conditioning. Those are kind of the visions, and that's really all we've gotten to because we haven't talked really about the design or, I know Pam mentioned collaborative spaces and garage doors. Unless you're going to change the instructional practices of the teachers and do some of those other things, that's nice, but it doesn't really add any value. So I don't know necessarily that I would go, that route, but I would like to see our science labs at the middle school. Because that's an old high school, they are science labs. The sinks don't work, the Bunsen burners don't work. You really can't do anything in there as it relates to really having a functioning lab. I'd like to see true science labs at a new building with our middle school students. So I know that's not a lot, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about for that vision. And we would want to pull in the teachers to say, what is it that you need in order to be able to teach at that high level? We would want to pull in our community and say, what is it that you would want to see for your students that you think that they should have? We would want to ask our students. We would want to say to our primary school students and our middle school students, what's important to you? Primary school students would probably say a really great playground. Lots of less blacktop and more things to do, right? So I think we get all of that feedback and then we determine how we're going to move forward with that design, which leads into your part about communication. I don't have a plan yet, but what I do know is when you are transparent, when you bring more stakeholders to the table, when you listen to their feedback, whether you like it or you don't, and you use all of those things and you continuously communicate what that is and what you're planning on doing, people are more receptive. Again, like I said before, they may not necessarily like the direction you're moving, but they at least feel that someone has heard them and that you're making your decision based upon that. So for me, it's interesting because I know we're moving down this route. I was watching Oakwood Schools, which happens to be kind of right outside of Columbus there, and they just passed their bond issue. And I keep saving their things because I follow them on how much they're communicating and the things that they're doing. So I think looking to other school districts who've been successful and saying, how did they communicate that? What were the things that they did? And then looking to bring those here. So I know that wasn't like a definitive answer, but communication is huge.
Anyone else?
That was pretty easy. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Again, this will be posted. Probably give us a couple days because they're going to try to take the presentation and the video they took tonight and merge them so that those who are watching it will see both at the same time. Also, the AVG assessment is online on our website, so you can find that. And if you ever have any questions, want to meet with us, email us. Jen Knapp and I are available if you want to stay after and ask a question because you didn't want to ask it in the audience thing. We are going to be here. But thank you again for coming out tonight, and please go and enjoy this beautiful weather before it's 50 tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.